1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Royal Blue Podcast Soundcheck. Tuesday show live. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Hello and welcome to the Royal Blue Podcast. It is Tuesday, November the 25th, the day after Everton's 1-0 win over Manchester United at Old Trafford. We are live on YouTube and I am your host, Ian Croll. Joining me in the Royal Blue studio today to talk all things Everton, we've got Joe Thomas and Conor O'Neill. We have got a very smug Joe Thomas.
I'm not smug.
You are smug. You just should have seen Joe before we've come live on air. He's, bragging, I guess, is the word that he's been saying. This result, this win, this probably going to be an away win against the likes of a Manchester United is going to come. And to be fair to you, Joe, you did predict it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's an exaggeration to be saying that. That I've been saying this all season, or pretty much since the Wolves game.
Gloat, gloat.
No, but since the Wolves game when they turned over Wolves, and albeit Wolves look very, very poor now. At the time, we didn't quite realise how bad they were. But I thought that was a real my match point after that was buck up is going to be a ride for this season for Everton fans, due for some excitement that they haven't had. And there are always going to be some ups and downs and times when they frustrate us, and there will be this season. But from that point, I think it's been clear that there's a degree of quality and intelligence in this side that's been missing for quite some time. And I've just thought for a good few months now, and obviously I back this up in my writings and on here, and with me predictions for this game, although obviously can't read too much into that I did think that there'll probably come a point this season where one of those dismal away records would end. They just had enough in their locker, a bit more about them this Everton side, I think, this season. You just thought that somebody would probably take them for granted, someone would be a bit complacent, or they might catch a bigger, in air quotes, side off guard after an international break or a European game or something like that. It didn't happen at Anfield, but I think we saw from the second half that had they started better, it could have done. It could have happened at City. They should have scored at least one at 0-0. It did happen at Old Trafford. Obviously, I wouldn't have expected it to have happened in these circumstances, but I do feel a degree of vindication for those claims that Everton had this in their locker. I said that to Keane and Dewsbury Hall a couple of weeks ago when I sat down with him. I said, I think you'll do something, and he agreed. And I think the pair of us delivered last night, didn't we?
It was obviously your words of advice were obviously ringing in his ear as he peeled that right foot shot into the top corner. We've got to welcome back Conor O'Neill, who's fresh off a trip to Rome. You were back in the office 6 in the morning.
I was,
and now you're on the Royal Blue Podcast. How are things?
All good. Bit of divine intervention at the Vatican over the weekend, and look what happens. Who knew that all it took was a little trip to Rome? Speak to the big man, and look what happens.
And a late birthday present for you as well.
It was a late birthday present, yeah. And it's always a bit mixed, my birthday, because it always comes over the international break. So it's quite good in the sense that Everton can't ruin it, but you never quite get that win that you sometimes think, oh, that's a nice little birthday boost. But that very much was the birthday boost last night. It was it was superb, and it was like watching. It was like every stage of being an Everton fan last night, wasn't it? Because before the game, you get fed up of listening, don't you, as an Everton fan, of being told this is your chance. United aren't great, they've got vulnerabilities, but you think last season's team was the worst United team probably in recent memory, and they still managed to come to beat Everton 4-0 at Old Trafford. Then the start, you think, oh, this is actually quite positive on the front foot. The kick-off alone, where everyone goes running forward, and you think, we're up for this. Then 13 minutes in, which we will get onto, that fatal moments arrived. You just think, oh, here we go again, with the self-destruct buttons being well and truly hit.
Was that faithful or fatal?
Fatal.
Wasn't quite fatal, nearly.
But you think it's going to be, you think this is going to be a long night, and here we go again. Then obviously the goal comes and you think, oh, you know, that's good, something to hold on to. But there's still a long way to go. Get to half time, feeling optimistic. Then, you know, 15, 20 minutes into the second half, you think, oh, we've got a chance here. Like, you know, these look lacklustre to say the least. And then Pickford makes that save, doesn't he, from Zerky, and you get brought back down to earth and you start sitting on the edge of the couch getting, well, I was at home watching it on the edge of the couch getting nervous, and by the end of the game you bang your fingernails, but, you know, Everton got over the line, and it was a huge victory, and one that I think, you know, everyone's got every right to savour and celebrate, because it's been a long time coming, that sort of win.
Absolutely. And just to... I assume that you did use your NordVPN while you're away in Rome as well.
Of course.
Yeah. How was it?
It was very good.
Yeah.
Well worth getting if you're making a little trip abroad.
And your mum used it as well, didn't she?
Yeah. Spread the word.
So to get the best discounts off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/EFC. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on a 2-year plan, and there's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. And the link is in the podcast episode description box. So today's agenda, obviously, there's no secret to it. Everton picked up all 3 points against United last night. They obviously didn't do it the easy way. We are going to go into all the major details from Monday night's game, including the red card incident, and we will go over how the Blues did regroup to see out a massive 3 points. And as always, give us a thumbs up and drop us a like and subscribe to the channel. Joe, I mean, I'll be honest, it was so unlikely. Even I know you didn't think it was unlikely, but when we went down to 10 men, I felt, you know, the writing's on the wall here. Very unlikely, but performance-wise, I think I described it on Twitter last night as colossal. You know, to put that result and performance in the face of adversity of everything that happened was sensational for me. Where does this rank in terms of Everton's modern away day wins / performances? Have I put you on the spot there? Sorry.
You know what? I think that it's a very different experience to a lot of the big away wins that they've had over recent years. I think that for the vast majority of the last 3 or 4 years, Everton have been in relegation fights. So whilst away wins have been rare, albeit they have increased significantly under David Moyes, they've always been caveated by the fact that they were needed, that Everton needed to pull a win from somewhere. So when I think of probably the two outstanding ones, I would say Leicester away and the Lampard, the 2-1. Which was, came after the week after the win at home to Chelsea, and it was just those back-to-back wins that really, really kind of formed the backbone of that push for survival that ended in Crystal Palace. That was amazing, but again, it was also necessary. And then I also think of the May, I think it was May Day. It was there were 2 bank holidays in May in a week, I think, or a fortnight. Under Deitch, the season ended in Bournemouth when they went to Brighton and won 5-1, and that was obviously absolutely phenomenal and stunning, incredible performance. No one saw that coming, including me. So those 2 were both massive. Probably wouldn't put this in the same context as them, because obviously Everton, I think, are in a different position this season, albeit the table is tight, and no one can take anything for granted. The away end was fantastic. The away end was fantastic from the start. Old Trafford was the soundtrack of that game last night. I don't know if this came across on TV. It was just played to the sound of Everton fans. They just dominated the airwaves. It really was a remarkable show of force from them. And I'd probably say it felt a little bit like some of the feel-good wins that Everton had at the back end of last season under Moyes. At that point when everyone knew that Everton was safe, Fulham, Newcastle, wins in the sunshine. Wasn't a huge amount to play for, but they went to places where they didn't necessarily have particularly good records and pulled off what were probably deemed to be surprise wins at the time, and wins that they deserved as well. And this was another one like that. It was obviously in terms of the size and the symbolism of the opposition and how big a club Man United are. I know there are people saying on there they're not. It's easy to beat Man United now. Man United have been in a mess for a decade and haven't beaten them. And I think I've been there 4 times so far covering this, and Everton have produced limp displays in every single one of them and been really, really poor. This is a Man United side on the up, albeit still with a lot of frailties, a lot of vulnerabilities. But I think that what David Moyes needed this season I think there are two things that David Moyes and Everton need this season. One is for it to be a season without a relegation battle. That's the first true sign of real progress, bearing in mind where they've come from, albeit it's a low threshold of expectation and one they should achieve and hopefully will do. I think another thing that was going to be useful was they needed a tangible sign of real progress, something that showed that they're doing things now that Everton sides of recent years couldn't do and didn't do. They needed a defining victory that you could kind of mass all the other like little signs of positivity around that will help pull everyone through the hard times of the season, because there will still be hard times. But you can almost look back on that and have those standout moments. You can go, yeah, this side is getting better. Yeah, there is real proof that things are going forward, and I think that this is quite seismic in that, because it's a win that can define a defining win in a season of transition, I think.
There's a comment in the comment section. Connor from Paul Jackson says, "This is the greatest Everton result in the Premier League era. It is also the greatest result in David Moyes' management career." Would you go?
I don't know about them.
No,
so, yeah, I think that's maybe
what I will say, Connor. Before, I know you were away last week, so you probably didn't catch any of the stuff that we did. Me and Joe did a United preview, and I did ask the question: is this game, or is there a win on Monday if we were to do it, which obviously we did, bigger for David Moyes than maybe what it would be for Everton? Because let's face it, we know his record is so poor against the so-called Big Six teams, against United, and even when we beat United with the Oviedo goal, Moyes was the manager. Yeah. So there's always that, that thing on his back, wasn't there? And let's face it, it's the stat there, it's the first, Everton are the first away side in the Premier League to beat Man United at Old Trafford after having a man sent off. Now we can come on to the red card and stuff, but regardless, it is big.
Oh, it's huge. I just don't think it's as big as them to point to there, because Moyes will probably look and say, well, his biggest win as manager career is when he guided West Ham to that European trophy. And I think Everton, like Joe said there, Wolves and Brighton, it was probably the biggest result I think Everton have probably had in recent years, and probably second to that when Carlo took the team across Stanley Park and we won around field for the first time in 20 odd years. That was huge, because of that did feel like a big kind of power lift of what a moment that was. Obviously somewhat tainted by the fact it was behind closed doors and during COVID. But I just think last night was so big in the sense of Everton's players have been quite quick this season to talk about a mentality shift and a change in mentality, and how much David Moyes is striving to get the team up the table, and they shouldn't look at, like, I know Joe said there, a sign of progress this season is not being in a relegation battle, and it is, let's make no bones about it. It 100% is. But, you speak to players, and myself and Joe are fortunate enough to speak to members of the Everton squad, and they talk about challenging for Europe and getting in around the European spots and stuff like that. And that only comes if you can start winning the type of games that we saw last night, and you have that bit of mental, steel, and a bit of the ability to have a setback and dust yourselves down and just go again and carry on playing as if, like, nothing's happened. And that was what we saw last night, certainly for a good hour. Everton just kind of picked them. Yeah, David Moyes made a few tweaks, but Everton just picked themselves up, dusted themselves down, and went again. And I think the big thing last night as well is that Everton looked like a well-coached team, the way they were set up. They clearly had a plan. They clearly identified areas in which they were going to hurt Man United, and it paid off. And I think that was another step in the right direction, because I think too many times we've seen in recent years, we've watched Everton and thought, what is the plan? Like, we just like 11 players have gone out on the pitch. So there was massive strides, I think, taken last night. And look, we'll probably get carried away, and we've got every right to get carried away, but we've been here before, and certainly the game to go back to, I think, is the derby when Everton went around field under Carlo, because that felt like a big moment in the point of we were on for the top four at that point. And I remember at the time thinking that couldn't be the highlight of Everton's season, winning around field. They had to take that and kick on for the final few months of the season. And unfortunately, that derby winning around field was the highlight of Everton's season. The challenge now is to make sure that the win at Old Trafford is not the highlight of the season, and Everton go to Stamford Bridge in a couple of weeks and give Chelsea a game. They go to the Emirates, they give Arsenal a game. Because like Joe said, you look at the two away games Everton played this year against the Big Six. Liverpool away, paid the price for a poor 20 minutes, but then got back into it, wasted some good opportunities before half time. Get one of them, it could be a different story. in the end, Liverpool have enough to see it out. And Man City away wasted opportunities, and the goals we can see is that Man City I thought were really poor as well. You know, they were just kind of sloppy, and so to get over the line like we did last night, I think was huge, and full credit to David Moyes and all the players, because it was some effort and it was some performance.
I agree. I don't think, well, we should try not to let this result, as positive as it was, define the season. We should try and let the
use
result
this as a springboard now and move forward and you know, climb the table, because
build on it.
You look at this season and you look at the Premier League table, and everything's up for grabs. I mean, you know, we all sit here admittedly think, you know, Arsenal will win the title and Wolves are going to go down, but you know, from about 5th or 6th onwards to, you know, probably 13 to 14, there's not much there. So if you can put everyone together and start picking up some results, who knows where it'll take you.
Joe, let's park the positivity just for a couple of minutes. We will come back onto it.
Only a Robo podcast with if we could have to be positive the
no,
whole duration.
There's always something, isn't there? The red card incident's obviously a huge flashpoint in the game. You wouldn't have seen it because you were in the stands, but Sky Sports cameras didn't capture it at the time. They were showing a replay, and then all you heard over the commentary was, "Oh, he sent him off." So I don't know if you got that the same as well, Connor. And then there's just huge confusion. I don't know what it was like for you in the stands. When it happened, and obviously given the red card, he's given us marching orders. After the start that we had, I thought, this is a fantastic start. But I started to question, is this really happening? Like, what have we done? Is this what Everton is about? I don't know. What did you make of it?
Felt very Everton, didn't it? It felt
just classic. Like, well, very Everton, but like, even though that's like the 3rd time in the history of the Premier League.
No, but I mean, just that self-inflicted.
Yeah.
You know, it was an absolute meltdown, and you know, obviously it was unsavoury, and it's really, really poor. And I think that for all that David Moyes has tried to, you know, make light of the situation after, and both he and Ruben Amorim after the game, because I was with both of them, were making the case that they actually like to see that kind of fight and desire within their own dressing room and within their players, because it suggests that people are setting high standards of each other and have a passion and desire and drive for the team to do well. But for all the more he tried to play down what happened, some of the players have, I suspect that there'll be quite a serious inquest into that incident at Finch Farm this week, because it has serious repercussions for Everton. This is a side that already has a fragile midfield and now misses its most experienced midfielder for 3 very, very difficult games at a time when Everton have a lot of momentum to take into them, but that momentum will be. Is fragile, because this season is going to be a challenging one, because so many teams have got the ability to beat each other. So, it really was appalling, to be perfectly honest. Obviously, we've seen players argue with each other over mistakes from time to time, but the way in which that escalated was really concerning. The way it continued after the red card was showing. For all we can probably have a debate about whether or not it should have been a red card, but once the red card. One, those players have put themselves in that situation, and 2, once the decision's been made, obviously you could see that Idrissa Gueye was very, very upset after, and again didn't show himself in a good light. Now he's come out and apologised on the final whistle, so he's nipped it in the bud, and I think that, combined with the win and combined with the manager playing it down a little bit, has probably turned this into something that most of us will laugh at and forget about and move on, and something that can be moved on quite quickly from. But I think that that probably there does need to be a few serious discussions at Finch Farm to try and work out what the undercurrents there were, because you always got the impression that wasn't something that was just a heat of the moment thing, the way it escalated so quickly. Do
you think Moyes' comments are different if we lose the game? Because to be fair, Amorim's comments were similar to Moyes', and he lost the game.
Yeah, but his comments were similar, and because he was basically saying my team had no fight. And that was representative of the fight that was displayed by a team that fought to victory. So I think what Amorim is saying is you'd rather have players fight each other if that created a situation where the majority of that squad was fighting with each other to come to big results. I think Moyes' comments are probably different if Everton go on to lose that game. Even if they concede a late, maybe not if they concede a late equaliser, I think the point still would have been a good result at Old Trafford going into the game. But I think the result makes it easy to gloss over the situation. But I thought it was quite noticeable. I'm not sure if you saw this, but at half-time, Moyes sprinted down the touchline. This is a bloke
trying to pull them apart again.
Well, obviously not, but because Idrissa Gueye's already in the dressing room, isn't he? And but he clearly had concerns that there was a situation that he might need to get on top of in that dressing room. And what I wonder is, and like I asked, Idrissa Gueye's apology came on the final whistle. It came at the end of the game, not at half-time. It sounds like they didn't focus too much on it at half-time. My understanding is I think Keane and Gueye were kept separate at the time in the dressing rooms. But I think that it probably helped Everton that Seamus Coleman was already in there or around the scene. The fact that the club captain was probably there and able to be around Idrissa Gueye for that half an hour until half-time and probably potentially diffuse the situation. I don't know whether I didn't see if he came out to join the backroom staff in the dugout later on in the first half after he came off, but I didn't see that. So it may well be that he was in there at the time, and again, it's a calming presence, and that's probably one of the big reasons. Not for obviously no one predicted an issue like this, but Moyes knowing he's got a figure that's trusted by him and trusted by the dressing room that can help in situations like that is a big reason why he wanted him around this season.
So he's obviously gone off injured, sat there, and then a couple of minutes later, Idrissa Gueye joined him in the dressing room, and he goes, "What are you doing in here?" And he's like, "I've just slapped my Keane." Like, you wonder what Seamus Coleman to be sat there thinking, "You've done what?" It's very Everton, isn't it? The club captain sat there and he's joined by his teammate who's being sent off because he just slapped his teammate. It's all very Everton. But I agree with Joe. I think there's two things for me for this. I think Joe's right in the sense of how it blew up so quick. It was a little bit worrying. Because I didn't think it was that bad. They obviously didn't, it creates the chance and stuff like that. But it just seemed to be like a bit of a breakdown in communication, not on the same wavelength. It didn't seem like, anything drastic, but the way it blew up so quick and the way Idrissa Gueye lost his head so quick, I thought was...
You wouldn't expect it from him. It's like the one player on the pitch would say he wouldn't do that.
But was a little bit like, I was certainly taken back by that. I was a bit, couldn't really believe what I was seeing. But on the flip side, I don't think any Everton fan can moan at Idrissa Gueye again. They just roll over. They don't care. When it goes the other way, you can't then moan. I know you're trying to try and find a happy medium, but
I think you can moan when it gets that bad.
That's what worries me more, though, is how much he blew up. But I think you can't be too harsh on Idrissa Gueye. The biggest thing for me as well when it all happened was that, I know he say, but it was because it was him as well, because he's being so important, especially away from Happen. That it's the end of it, and we've got more important things we need to worry about than having round two.
I mean, as Joe mentioned, Idrissa Gueye did put a statement out of full time. He did put it out on his Instagram, which he said, "I do want to apologise. First to my teammate Michael Keane, I take full responsibility for my reaction. I also apologise to my teammates, the staff, the fans and the club. What happened does not reflect who I am or the values I stand for. Emotions can run high, but nothing justifies such behaviour. I'll make sure it never happens again." And I think that's fair enough. You put it to bed. We want the fight. We just need to channel it in different ways, and we did eventually. We got the win. I guess if we took the lead 1-0 with down to 10 men and then succumb to a United draw or defeat, you're going to look back at that situation and go, well, that was what was to blame. But the resilience that the team showed, even without one of the most influential figures. And what I will say, this is my final say, Keane put a fantastic display.
I was going to say,
I don't think he's blameless in the whole situation. I think that shove he just saw red after that shove, Gueye, didn't he? If anyone gets shoved, you're not going to be happy about the situation. He obviously just needs to read the rules a little bit. A clear palm hand slap to the face, regardless of whether it's your teammate or opposition, you're getting sent off nowadays. So,
although you shouldn't have been sent off.
Okay, well, so you're saying no sending off.
I thought it was absolutely scandalous that they sent him off for
Should
it.
the referee have
show some common sense? Yeah, and even if the referee took 2 minutes and went over to David Moyes and said, "You need to have a word with the two of them now," or Paul Pickford or Tarkowski is the two senior players on the pitch and said, "You need to tell them to calm down. If they don't calm down, I will send them off." Just use some common sense. There was a part of me, and obviously, talking to a couple of people last night who were quite quick to point out that the referee couldn't get the red card out quick enough and
He was
stuff
very
and,
quick, wasn't he?
stuff like that. And you know, I just thought it was a poor decision to send him off. I don't think it was, you know, it was that bad. I mean, you think of when, like, you know, Lee Bowyer and Keane both got sent off. They had a proper full-on scrap. You know, that it was just, it didn't really, it felt harsh, I think, to send him off. But I do think you got to give credit to Keane because he picked himself up and he dusted himself off and was outstanding again. And, you know, that's testament to him and his character that he didn't let it affect him and he just got on with his performance.
Emma says, Keane was immense last night and he can slap him more often. I mean, the letter of the law, Joe, I guess, if you read it and, you know, the language of it, it's a sending off.
Clearly it's a red card, isn't it? And it doesn't stipulate between whether it's a teammate or another player.
He did make a quick decision, the ref, as Connor pointed out, and even more, you said the referee could have taken just that little bit longer.
I do kind of wonder if there should be a little bit more discretion when it's blue on blue.
Yeah.
Like, you know, because I don't really know who that serves sending him off. But then obviously you have also got to, you know, set a precedent and, you know, for set standards for the watching world, haven't you? And everyone else. You know, at the end of the day, like, I'm firmly in the camp that Idrissa Gueye's reactions were completely inexcusable, and I think, you know, he alludes to that with his statements. It's one thing being angry, but, you know, to kick off in the way that he did, put in jeopardy what was already shaping up to be looking like a really good opportunity for an Everton side at Old Trafford, a place where they very rarely win. So yeah. But yeah, that was law. It's a red card. But I mean, I don't really understand why, say, for instance, a better course of action for everyone might not have been to give them both a yellow card and move on. You know, get Tarkowski in because Coleman had gone off the pitch at that point. Get Tarkowski and, you know, get everyone to calm down. If they shake hands with each other, give them a yellow card. No one from Man United is there saying you've got to send them off. Are they? I think if that doesn't end up in a red card, I don't think anybody questions it after the game or during the game. But the letters of the law are it's a red card, and Idrissa Gueye has put himself in that position where he can be sent off. And, you know, when you add those two together with the red card, VAR is not going to overturn it because it's not a clear and obvious error. And
it can't, because the letter of the law doesn't allow it to, does it? You know, it's not.
So the consequences are, you know, Everton playing for 80 minutes with 10 men and missing one of their most important players for 3 very, very challenging games.
Just to be controversial, do I speculate whether, if it was the other way around, would the referee have sent off a United player? We'll never know, but it was a strange one. I mean, even you know, I've seen Manchester United fans online.
I mean, it's
Twitter
probably,
say
in fairness to the referee, one, I guess he deserves the benefit of the doubt on that, but two, given how clear the law is, if he didn't send him off, you would assume that VAR would have to intervene and
possibly, and
say
enforce
it's,
the
look,
law,
it's a red card. So,
yeah.
So yeah.
I just thought a bit of common sense could have been, you know, put into the equation. Like I say, you know, could the referee have not just said to Jordan Pickford and James Tarkowski or even David Moyes, you know, you've got 2 minutes, tell them to calm down, otherwise I'm going to send them off. You know, just. Yeah, it was. I don't think what didn't help, though. I don't think Idrissa Gueye's reaction helped, did it? Because
he made it worse,
he gets
didn't he?
sent off, then he just loses his head even more, and like he's basically kind of manhandled off the pitch in the end. That wasn't a great look. I don't think either.
On our TV screens, that was the first thing that I saw. I don't know whether it was the same for you, Connor, but
it was Pickford and Dijk.
Yeah, so I thought it was Pickford and Dijk. Didn't realise it was Keane.
Like, I mean, watching the stands, we just didn't have a clue. And again, because we had the Sky monitors on a delay in front of us, but it took, obviously, but we don't have the sound or anything like that. And you're also trying to work out what's going on. It took a long time for anyone to read for ages. And I think it was only a good 10 minutes after there was a really blurred, slowed down version where it's like you could see the guy clearly makes contact with Keane's face, and you're like, oh yeah, fair enough. So.
There is one angle which I think is from behind, which is the complete opposite angle of where the referee's standing, where you think, he has made a really, you know, handy contact with his palm there. I mean, I've just said there it doesn't matter because we won, but I guess it does matter because the consequences now, future team selections are going to be naturally weaker with Idrissa Gueye not in the team. But we won it, you know, to an extent. That's the main thing. Connor, let's get back to the positives. Keane and Dewsbury Hall scored a worldie of a goal. Just how good was his performance overall first?
Yeah, he was one of many players who was outstanding, wasn't he? I think, it was one of them nights last night, I think, where you can't really single out any one individual. I mean, Jordan Pickford will get a lot of plaudits because the save he makes off Serkis is truly outstanding. But, certainly from an outfield perspective, everyone dug in, everyone put a real good performance in. And I actually thought the goal was a reward for Everton's brave approach to going down to 10 men. They did keep on playing, they did try to stay in the game. They did try and get forward and break patterns of play up, and we didn't just sit back and put 10 men behind the ball and think, well, let's just try and soak up as much pressure as we can. We still tried to get forward and make things happen. And I thought the goal was a brave approach. I have to say, I did think the goalkeeper should have done better. I think he goes with the wrong hand. He gets it all wrong. But Dewsbury Hall gets into position and knows exactly where he wants to put the ball. And I think that is the big thing, is that we've watched Everton this season get into good positions and probably just, waste them. Whereas he kind of felt he got in front of goal, composed himself and knew exactly where he wanted to put it, and that's where he put it. And, he got his reward, and Everton got their reward for the brave approach.
I mean, just touching on what Connor's saying there, Joe, with regards to even when we went down to 10 men, we still were able to, take advantage of United, get further up the pitch. We were still playing, and from our attacking point of view, we still looked okay. The thing, which is probably the most obvious thing, we've got players to allow us to do that, haven't we? Where previously we probably haven't, and we've had to go a little bit more direct. So obviously I'm coming on to individual performances, Keane and Dewsbury Hall, but you've got Grealish and Dye, Tierno Barry, is kind of coming into his own a little bit. He's even doing the things that I didn't even expect that he would be able to do. He won the most, is it aerial duels?
Most aerial duels by a Premier League player so far this season.
I think that's probably unheard of or unexpected, I guess. Even as hold-up play, as layoff play, it's allowing us to get further forward and bringing Keane and Dewsbury Hall into the game a lot more.
Yeah, it's useful, and it was notable in the first 10 minutes that he was very good at leading the Everton press, because obviously Everton made it very uncomfortable for Manchester early on. And there was one in the opening minutes where he was hunting down the men's, and he was beckoning and Dye to push up with him to get on the full back, and it was really effective, and it was good to see him kind of taking on that that almost like leadership role as well, and having the confidence to direct the players around him. So it's another promising performance. I don't think you can read too much into the lack of attacking. Obviously it's another game where he hasn't had a shot on target, but obviously if you're down to 10 men for 80 minutes, then your role as a striker becomes slightly different. Obviously, I think he deserved to start for his performance against Fulham. He clearly deserves to start against Newcastle. I don't think any striker can nail down a starting place in that side properly until they start scoring goals. And that's ultimately what he'll be judged on. I'm not sure if I wrote this last week. I'm not sure we had this discussion on the podcast, but it was notable over the international break how much speculation there was around Everton going after strikers, and we enter a bit of a silly season, and the reality is Everton have a little bit of money and their strikers aren't scoring goals, so it's very, very easy to put 2 and 2 together and link them to anybody. Well, Everton don't want to have to go into the market again to sign a striker. They might need to, but they don't want to have to go and do that. They want the players that they've got to step up and show that they don't need to go and spend more money elsewhere. They can concentrate on other areas on the pitch, and it's up to Barry and Beto to do that. And I think Barry is starting to come to his own. It felt like Fulham was a breakthrough performance. He continued his momentum last night. He needs a goal, but the hope has to be now that if he gets that goal, it then does spark something.
I mean, Joe's right. You want your strikers to score your goals. You need them to be the focal point of the team. And let's face it, both strikers have struggled in front of goal this season. Even
sorry, Craig, just there's on the comments there saying the Everton press is quite wonderful to behold, like a pack of orcas. That's just crazy.
Is that a compliment?
Well, I'm sure it is, because Everton's pressing was very good when they had 11 men. But I've never heard it compared to a pack of orcas, and I think that deserves mention. I guess
if a pack of orcas were coming towards us, I'd be a little bit terrified.
I'd be fine if it was on land.
Yeah, on land, it'd be fine.
If I was in the swimming pool here at me, I'd be worried.
Yeah. I mean, look, Barry, for me, kind of set the tone, Connor. Look, Joe's right, as I said there. You've got to score goals, but if you're not able to get in the position or scoring goals, or you are missing that odd chance, then do the next best thing, which is kind of
Work hard.
What he
Yeah,
did. Work
yeah.
hard. You know, the energy, the press, your composure on the ball, your touch, you know, helping out your teammates, which is everything that he did. And we didn't create like much or many chances last night. And the one chance that we did score was it was a worldie. It's not like we got into the box on many occasions. So it was always going to be limited to what Barry was able to do. Just think you can see, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself whatsoever, but you can see signs that he is starting to believe, and
you can see signs of improvement, and that's the big thing,
yeah.
is you can see signs of improvement, and that's the big thing, because you'd be quite worried if we were sat here now and we weren't seeing signs of improvement. But you can see signs of improvement, and he's putting himself about. He's working hard, and like Joe says, you just got to hope that goal comes, sooner rather than later. I was gutted at the Fulham game when he taps one in from 4 yards out. Obviously, he ruled out for offside, but you're just thinking that's what you need. That just a little tap in, not a goal that'll live long in the memory in terms of the highlights reels, but it gets you off the mark, gets you up and running, and that's what he just needs to do now, the next step. But I think the last few weeks have been really promising in terms of development and improvement. And you could say last night he's got a bit of physicality about him as well. Puts himself about. He's given defenders something to think about, and he's clearly played his way into this team. And he's clearly now, probably the number one starter for the time being now. And he's got a chance, and he's got to take that. It's as simple as that. But the big thing I thought last night was intelligence, in the sense of, there was a moment in the second half where Everton got a free kick inside their own half. I think Mikalenko plays it along the line, and Jack Grealish puts his body in front of Ahmad. Ahmad runs into him and he falls over, and Everton got over and got another free kick 20 yards into the United half.
Yep.
It eats up a couple of minutes of time. Everton retained possession, and I just thought in that moment, that's what they've been lacking for so long. That little bit of intelligence, that little bit of know-how to be like, we can't really do nothing here, we're probably not going to carve out many chances, but down to 10 men, let's just play clever. And I thought we'd done that really well last night for the first time in a long time. We played quite clever. We kept the ball when we needed to. We did do our best, certainly when the substitutes come on, to start doing wild things. Alcaraz being one where he has the chance to break and has 3 options available, and Smell passed it to a Man United shirt on the halfway line. David Moyes' reaction, I think, was quite telling on the sideline, because he was jumping up and down like a lunatic. But it was just that little bit of intelligence that I think we've been long missing. That little bit of know-how and that little bit of the ability to get yourself over the line when it matters most.
Yeah, I mean, we had that conversation, didn't we, before we come on air this morning? And you are right with regards to the substitutions. I put it down to, and this is not making an excuse, I'm just trying to justify. I think they were the right changes. I think he made every single change.
We had to make changes.
Right.
He had 100% had to make changes last night, because they were really
no,
tiring.
But that was my point. So the players who came on, the likes of Beto, Alcaraz, the likes of those, when they got the ball, they were looking to make something happen. They were looking to progress the ball forward to try and score. Whereas there was times where we progressed the ball forward and it was a James Garner, but he knew, now either push the ball into the corner or bring it back to the defence and give it to Pickford. So I think the likes of Beto and Alcaraz, they're just eager to impress. They wanted to get that goal, and I don't know what the message was from Moyes. You would have to think that if there was a chance to break, use those two to do so. But I think you are right. The players who were still on the pitch at the time, they were shattered, and the best course of action was to retain possession.
Obviously in an unusual position out on the right. I thought he did well when he came on.
I think he might play himself into contention, I think,
I don't think they got a choice, have they?
for the weekend now.
I mean, we did keep United at bay for large portions of the game, Joe, but there was a couple of scary moments, and let's face it, if it wasn't for Jordan Pickford, United definitely would have scored. I mean, what another fantastic performance. You were a little bit, or was it you, Con, a little bit annoyed that our colleague Chris Beasley didn't give him a 10 for his performance and his player ratings?
Yeah, I just thought, I had to give him a 10 last night, I think.
What did he get? A 9? Was it an 8?
I think a 9, I think he might have got. Obviously, Dewsbury Hall got a 10 off Chris. I had to just give him a 10, because I thought the save was absolutely superb. And I said to, as I said to Ian before we started this, it would have been very typical of Everton, wouldn't it, if Zirkzee pops up and scores last night? Because he's done nothing since he's been there. He's been out in the cold. He's been having the rare start. And after Everton defending so well and doing as well,
the only thing he's done,
pops up and scores.
The only thing he's done this season is look at headlines linking him to Everton.
Yeah. And then it would have been quite fitting that he goes and gets the equaliser and gets Old Trafford up and rocking with 15, 20 minutes to go. It's very Everton, that, isn't it? We've seen that before. And you do wonder, actually, on that. I was thinking, did they play him last night to try and make Everton think about maybe going for him in January? But it was a great save, wasn't it? The way he gets down, the way he tips it around the post. I mean, we've come to expect brilliance from Jordan Pickford because we've seen enough over the years. And as I think we've all said on this podcast, if it wasn't for him, Everton probably would have been a Sky Bet Championship club by now or at some point in recent years. But it was a great save, and I think you could just see the reaction as well to the save. The players, they were all come over and pat him on the back. So I think everyone realised just how big and how vital a save it was.
I mean, it's actions and saves like that, Joe, which obviously completely justifies why he's been given a new long-term deal. Just a comment here. So Gaspipe says, Pickford's save from Zirkzee brought back memories of Big Nev.
Yeah, Jordan Pickford is a very, very good goalkeeper. Last night he made some more very, very good saves, as he keeps doing, believe it or not, because you speak to anybody outside of Everton and they still question it. And it's just remarkable, isn't it? Like, I mean, another clean sheet. It was phenomenal. He was outstanding. And very good as a bouncer as well. Managed to pull intervened in these. So
don't mess with Jordan Pickford.
So yeah, and useful. I mean, you hate it when it's the opposition doing it to you, but obviously winding the clock down and just taking that bit of time over set pieces and things like that, it all matters, it all counts. He's very good at that.
Yeah, being clever and being smart. I guess another disappointment, Joe, was the disappointment for Seamus Coleman going off injured. Yeah. I think I was certainly surprised by the selection that David Moyes did put in Seamus Coleman right back. I didn't see that coming whatsoever, but he's had substantial amounts of minutes for Ireland, been successful over the past couple of weeks with the national team, comes in and obviously I think Moyes said he felt his hamstring tweak or, felt a twinge.
I think a muscle, yeah. I mean, he tried kicking a water bottle when he came off on Tuesday then, didn't quite get it right, which brought a lot of jeers from the home end. Yeah, it was a shame. I understand the logic in giving him a chance because I think that Everton have a lot of upside, or a lot of potential for upside at right back, because as well as Jake O'Brien has done and did again last night, obviously he has limitations from being a centre back, and Coleman's gone out there for Republic of Ireland and proven over 2 international breaks now that he can play games and play games at a high level, because Hungary and Portugal are no mugs that they defeated over the break. So with him having done that, I think, and also with moving James Garner into the middle was a necessity yesterday. I don't think Everton could have gone to Old Trafford really and played him at right back, because they lose too much from centre midfield if that happens. And obviously the lack of Idrissa Gueye going forward now will mean that has to maintain the case. If Coleman had come in and produced a solid display and offered a little bit more going forward than Jake O'Brien, who has struggled against left wingers that are good at carrying the ball, like Ahmad does and Bruno can do. He has struggled against that type of opposition at times this season. So I thought there were lots of reasons why it did make sense, but unfortunately that's kind of nipped it in the bud now. You think that the last time he started in the Premier League was against Southampton, the last game at Goodison Park. He lasted 20 minutes in that game as well. So look, it's a real shame, and obviously thoughts are with him, and hopefully it's not a serious injury and one he can come back from. But I think we probably had we've probably seen into the future there a little bit as well now, in the sense that how much more can you kind of toy with that idea of having him as a starting right back, coming on in games maybe, and obviously having him in the dressing room is clearly absolutely vital and essential for David Moyes. And although we didn't see it, that probably was useful again last night. But him as a long-term option at right back is probably not going to be the one. And I think that hopefully he can come back quickly from this, but he didn't come back quickly when he started against Man City on Boxing Day, if you remember last year, did really well in that 1-1 draw, lasted 90 minutes, came off in stoppage time, but then it was I think Southampton until we saw him again, certainly from the start. That game, it was into the season before we saw him again, didn't play much if any of pre-season. he is taking a while to recover. So you kind of wonder now, with the Republic of Ireland having some really big games now to qualify for the World Cup, I kind of wonder if maybe he might work towards more being fit for those games and hopefully getting to the America in the summer and helping Everton on the dress, in the on the training ground and in the dressing room and on the pitch when he can. But that was a worrying sight, and it was a real shame because he's obviously a wonderful player, brilliant person, exceptional captain, and a club legend, I think. So.
It hurt a little bit. Seeing that last night, it hurt because it felt like with Coleman, obviously given a structure stunt there, given the fact he plays against Portugal, he plays against Hungary, you thought to yourself, he's clearly got himself to a good level of fitness. He's back strong. He's going to prove everyone wrong again. And I wasn't surprised to see him start last night because I think obviously what he'd done during the international break, he's clearly played his way into David Moyes' thinking. But when you see him go off after like less than 10 minutes, and you're just thinking, is the Premier League maybe just a little bit too intense for him? So I was
going to ask you. Sorry, I know you're not a medical professional, and neither am I. But he has played two.
Nice of you to acknowledge that neither of us are.
No, I don't know if Joe is or not. But I know he played 2 games for Ireland. Close to 90 minutes, if not the full. I didn't watch the game. So to do that in such a short space of time, but then to come in against United, Premier League football, what is it? Is it the nature of the Premier League, the physicality, or is it just unlucky? Too many minutes?
It's a bit of everything, isn't it? I think the physical intensity of the Premier League is obviously far greater than a lot of other football. And you speak to anyone who says the Premier League's well ahead in terms, Florian Wirtz, for instance, at Liverpool is being described by many as a generational talent, but the Premier League looks a little bit too fast for him at the minute and a little bit too intense. Obviously, Seamus Coleman's on the opposite end of the scale in terms of his age and his previous injuries and stuff are probably caught up to him. So I think it's just a combination of a lot of things, but it just hurt a little bit last night because you do start to think a little bit now, when will we ever see him again? I don't mean that in a bad way, but like Joe says there, you do wonder whether they'll just be working now towards March when the Ireland games are, isn't it? I think about the next international break, where we're a bit of a thinking of trying to do his bit to ensure that Ireland gets to the World Cup, because I think for being brutally honest, if he does call time on his career this summer, it'd be no fitting way for him to depart, would it, than the World Cup with Ireland. Be a great achievement for him. Obviously, he'll leave Everton in a better place than what
an FA Cup and World Cup.
Possibly, Joe. Who knows?
Another prediction there.
Yeah, he's on fire at the minute with the predictions. So, but yeah, it just hurt last night. It was a bit of a sad sight to see. And it was the same with the Goodison farewell, wasn't it? But then the Goodison one, I do wonder how fit he really was. Whether it was a case of he deserves to lead the team out that afternoon, and whether it was just a case of get him on the pitch and take it from there. But
take it a positive from the negative. At least we've got a Jacob O'Brien to slot right back in there, and he went largely unnoticed in the game yesterday, and that was a very good thing. He just did his job, and he did it well.
He ended with a bloody nose. Did anyone see?
I think that was
what that was for.
Well, this is a complete guess because it wasn't like that at full time, or sorry, before full time. I think someone's given him a.
You think Idrissa Gueye's got back from the sidelines?
That's a complete, and I'll say, guess, because he didn't have it during the game. I reckon it's one of them celebrating.
Well, it was quite funny, wasn't it? I don't know if you might not have seen this, but at full time, Jack Grealish gave Michael Keane a slap, didn't he? so well done. So
I'm surprised he never got sent off.
So at least the team that plays the team the funny side of it by the time we got to the full time. But yeah, it was probably that was the problem. Like there was obviously that was. Just the game was not great, but the Coleman, it just felt a bit sad last night watching him the way he departed, and just hope he just get back fit. But it does look like a long road back from now in terms of being able to play in the Premier League.
We'll finish off now with the last couple of questions. I mean, Joe, this wasn't a smash and grab result by any means. Everton were on the front foot from the start, and obviously there was a setback in the game. So the way we set up and the way we played and the resilience and the way we dug in, all of that, what does that say about the manager and what he is trying to achieve? Because he has taken criticism over the past couple of weeks, and results haven't been great. So I think it's been justified. You're one of the ones, without a doubt, who said, be a bit more patient, stick with it. Things are coming, and I think that's fine. From my point of view, I was fine with everything. I just thought we could have been in a lot better position than where we were at this moment in time by tweaking some decisions. So that was my argument. But you have said, let's be patient. What do you see in terms of what the manager's doing?
I mean, I think they brought in quality. We saw that last night. We've seen moments of that throughout the season. But I just think Keane is such a good football player. He's probably been given more benefit of the doubt than perhaps deserved at some point during the season. I think there have been times when it would have been worth bringing Carlos Alcaraz in. But I just think that he's a sign, and that he's such a talented football player, so technically gifted, that he's one of those real signs of progress in this Everton squad. The fact that you have a player like him who's that good, and he's the third or fourth best player, or in the side, because you've also got your Grealishes and your Ndiays and things like that. It's just that raising the floor of talent in the side. And I thought that it was really interesting as well, because obviously he played a bit deeper last night because they went down to 10. Just like he played a bit deeper against Fulham, and you just saw how good he was. And that we saw it at the end of the first half when he got Casemiro a yellow card. He's so good at picking the ball from deep, running past someone with it, and just Casemiro took him out, got booked. It happened against Fulham when I can't remember who the player who got booked was, but it happened about 20 minutes in. Garner had the free kick that Bernard had touched around.
This lad should have got sent off, wasn't it?
Because his lad, he should have got sent off, because then 20 minutes later, Keane and Dewsbury Hall did the same thing to him again on the touchline, running from deep, got past him and got brought down and drew the foul. So that was really good. But look, I think that they have brought in quality and they have brought in youth, and what David Moyes has brought in is stability, but also that passion and that fight and that hunger and desire. And the challenge this season is to try and get all this to marry up into a squad that's stronger than the sum of its parts. And we've seen that jar at different times this season. There have been games when they've shown a frustrating lack of, or moments in games where they've shown a frustrating lack of fight, or there have been moments in games where they've shown fight but lack the quality. Last night was probably one of the first occasions where they've melded it all into a coherent performance over the course of 90-odd minutes. And I think that's what we saw last night. That's my takeaway, that there is, this is a side that is more talented than Everton have had for some time, which is why I've always thought it was capable of going and getting a win at somewhere like this because of that talent. But it's also one that has a backbone. And really what Everton need is, if they just want to don't want to just make progress, it's got to be sustainable. They don't want to just go and finish, have an amazing season and finish fifth, but then do what so many other clubs that do, then just drop out and end up 13th next season and an 8th, and then they maybe 12th, and then Everton want to launch a sustained assault on the top half of the table on those European places, and to do that you've got to layer up on the progress. You've got to have strong foundations for everything that you're doing, and I think yesterday was one of those days where we kind of saw that the foundations are being put in place for a stronger Everton. There's still lots of work to do to build upon it, but it's like they're not running before they can walk. They are laying all those, and then we saw it all work together really well last night.
Ken Sprayer says, do we now refer to our play as Orca Ball?
Orca Ball. I feel like this is going to end up running and running. It's going to be a weird Royal Blue in joke, isn't it, for the rest of the season? We'll get to Wembley for the FA Cup final in May, and there'll just be some Orca banners, the 1878s will have them, and no one else will know what's going on.
They can call it what they want. I don't care. Carry on playing like that. I mean, Connor, obviously 3 points last night. What's the biggest piece of evidence for you that the team is kind of not just improving but evolving? We've obviously got the positives of when we're in possession of the ball. You can quite clearly see that. But let's face it, even if we didn't have a man sent off last night and we won the game 1-0 and it played out the way it did, we'd all be saying, well, fantastic to hold on even with the 11 men. Now, even with 10 men, that fight, that psychological aspect, the resilience, it's all there. It's compared to when it hasn't been over the past couple of years.
That's the biggest thing, is the mentality shift, isn't it? Because too many times we've seen this Everton team suffer a setback and then they just crumble and fall apart, and very quickly, a game becomes 2-0, 3-0. As we saw last year when Everton went to Old Trafford and were beaten 4-0, and let's face it, that Man United team last year was probably the worst in 30 odd years, 40 years and we didn't win either. And they just brushed Everton aside with complete ease. So I think the big thing is the mentality shift. And last night, a couple of setbacks, no one lost their head, everyone carried on playing, everyone just stayed resilient, worked hard. And that's the other big thing as well, is that David Moyes has clearly got so many of these players who will run through brick walls for him. They're just running, like, you know, some of them last night were dead on their feet because they're just working their socks off. And I think that's an important thing, because they clearly have all bought into what David Moyes is trying to do. Clearly, as message in the dressing room is, let's aim for the stars and see where it takes us. And, you know, when I was seeing performances that back that level of talk up, like I say, you know, we speak to the members of the Everton squad, and, you know, they're talking about, you know, targeting European places and stuff like that. And it's many more results like performances what we saw last night, and that could become a possible reality.
I think it was a really good weekend for Everton as well, because, you know, for all that, you know, there's talk, you know, like Connor says, they're aiming for the stars and things like that. I think one of the issues, perhaps in between the last two international breaks, was the fact that people were nervous because some of the teams we expected to be weaker in the Premier League this season were a bit stronger, so the table was bunching together. So a couple of bad results, and you started to panic a little bit, and I think that's what was behind some of the nerves, which I think were a bit over the top, but I can understand where they came from going into the Fulham game. You hadn't won in a while, and the likes of your Burnley, your Leeds, everyone else was picking up points. And I think what would be helpful for Everton this season is, obviously it hasn't happened yet, but in recent years you've ended up with a bottom 3 or 4 that have kind of drifted away from the rest of the league. Now look, Everton's ambition should be higher than 14th, 15th, 14th, and just survival. But I think it'll make it easier for Everton to kind of have the freedom to attack the top half of the table if they're not worrying about teams coming up from behind them. And I think if you look at those results now, Everton are 18 points. Well, Wolves are on 2. That's a 16-point difference. I don't think Wolves are going to make that up on Everton now this season. You look at Burnley lost again. They're 8 points behind Everton. And look, them and Leeds are both showing more fight than promoted sides have done in recent seasons. But it's an 8-point and a 7-point gap to both of those sides now. Brentford have started the season remarkably well, certainly better than I thought they would be doing. But obviously they were 1-0 up and lost at Brighton, and they're a side that you'd like to think Everton could eventually, over the course of the season, get across. And I've been saying this all season, but even with Sunderland's very good start, I think that they'll end up being better than Sunderland, and they're only 1 point off them. And if you look at those 5 clubs there that I've just mentioned, and you work on the base that Everton finish above them, well, that's a worst case scenario of 15th. Obviously, we want to work higher than 15th, but you'd probably say that's a relatively fair, sensible starting point for expectations this season if you work on the basis that, albeit they finished 13th last season, that was ahead of Tottenham and Manchester United. Now, they've just beaten Man United and level on points with both of them, but just given the huge amount of resources they've got, you would always expect them to improve on last season. So, it's frustrating seeing the likes of Newcastle and Forest and Fulham just initially make that leap up towards Everton before Everton got that win. The table, that bottom half of the table would have bunched together apart from the bottom 3 or 4 if Everton hadn't have got that win yesterday. But if results carry on like that, and say Burnley and Leeds are both in difficult runs of form now, then if you remove that threat of a relegation battle, if you remove that kind of anxiety around the side, I just think it just makes it far easier, gives Everton more freedom to then go play with the verve and the confidence to then try and take on Overhaul and the likes of your Forests and your Fulhams and obviously your Brentfords and your Sunderlands in terms of how the way they started the season, but other teams around them, hopefully your Newcastles, and stay above your West Hams and things like that. It's just, you can just see a way in which the season could develop that could allow Everton to have the chance to just go I think
Palace, another club as well, with their European football commitments this season, obviously playing the Thursday nights, it's going into Sundays, but they're another team that Everton could maybe claw close to. The 2 big things I think as well is that Joe's right there in terms of the table, because I think we all looked at the table as well a couple of weeks ago when West Ham and Forest were down there, in the relegation zone or in the mix, and we all kind of looked at it and thought, well, West Ham got far too much quality, and Nuno's a good manager, and he'll probably go in there and he'll get them firing. And Bowen and Paqueta have got quality in the final third and are very good players. And Forest, you always thought, well, Dyche should go into Forest. He'll get them back playing the similar way to what Nuno had them playing last season. And again, they've got, like Elliot Anderson, Morello, they've got good players, and they will probably eventually, start to climb the table. And obviously that has, transpired as we all thought. But the big thing as well for Everton, and why I think last night was so big, is you look at some of the teams this season who've gone to traditional Big Six and won. So Sunderland went to Chelsea a couple of weeks ago and won 2-1. Played with no fear. Forest go to Anfield on Saturday and win 3-0. You know, there's been results this season where Everton fans rightly probably looked a bit envious and thought, why can't we do that? You know, why can't we go one of these clubs and play with a little bit of no fear and take the game to them and just have a go and see where it takes us. And last night, it kind of felt like Everton arrived in that moment of they went to one of the big six clubs. Okay, admittedly, you know, United are not the force that they once were and stuff like that. But they went, played with no fear, took the game to United, and they got the rewards. And I think that's what Everton fans want to see more of. That little bit of the shackles off. Let's just have a go and see where it takes us. And if we get beat, well, there's no point crying because it's not like we haven't been beat there before. But look what happens if things can go your way and you can easily come away with all 3 points.
Just a really nice comment, or a really good comment there from Wes Cart. The best Everton sides are always a bit moody, and it is a big step in the right direction last night. To finish off, are we going to agree on man of the match? Who's your man of the match?
Dewsbury Hall.
Jordan Pickford.
I was going to go Dewsbury Hall, to be fair. I think there's a number of candidates.
The outfield players were great, but I just think that save.
Yeah,
it's worth 3 points.
Okay, we are going to finish off.
And given no Chris Beasley isn't here, someone's got to take over ownership of the Jordan Pickford fan club.
Well, there you go. I mean, he did give Keane and Dewsbury Hall a 10, didn't he? Any final thoughts before we shoot off?
Enjoy the week.
Yeah, well, speaking of the week, plenty of preview content on the Liverpool Echo website from Connor, Chris and Joe, and there'll be plenty of preview videos ahead of the Newcastle game on Saturday on the Royal Blue podcast channel and YouTube channel as well. That is all for today's show. Please remember to give us a like and subscribe to the channel as always, and drop us some 5-star reviews on Apple and Spotify. Most importantly, enjoy the rest of your day, enjoy the rest of your week. I've been Ian Croll, joined by Joe Thomas and Connor O'Neill, and this has been the Royal Blue Podcast.